what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today: Carlos Thomas Jr. reportedly retiring from bodybuilding very young. So Carlos Thomas Jr., if you guys don't remember, he was a guy that had a ton of potential. In 2025, we saw him compete at both the Detroit Pro and the Arnold Classic, placing 7th in Detroit and 9th at the Arnold. Now, Carlos was a shorter bodybuilder, but had an insane physique. When you talk about 3D, round, full, dense muscle, that's Carlos Thomas Jr. When you talk about top-tier genetics for bodybuilding, that's Carlos Thomas Jr. I was actually wondering, why we hadn't heard or seen anything from him in so long, and it's been confirmed today by Beyond the Stage TV that he is no longer going to be competing in bodybuilding. He wants to pursue his career and pursue his doctorate degree. And this is according to an interview that he did with Beyond the Stage TV, where he talks about how he wants to focus more on his career, and he felt like he left some on the table, and he could have pushed his career further, but he was distracted by bodybuilding. And I actually have maybe a different opinion than you would expect me to have on this. As much as from a fan's perspective, I would like to see Carlos continue to compete and try to live out his full potential as a bodybuilder. Bodybuilding certainly has no guarantees. And if you look back at Carlos's career, especially, the recent shows where he had been struggling with this gastrointestinal issue, I believe it was colitis that he had. It was affecting his look on stage. I mean, of course, he's got a great physique. He's got a ton of muscle, but the condition just wasn't there those last two shows. And if he really feels like he has more potential in his career than he does as a bodybuilder, even though as a fan, I would love to see him stay in bodybuilding, I think that probably is the best choice for him to pursue his career if that's what he thinks. Because realistically, he wasn't winning any pro shows. His best placing was 3rd at the Texas Pro. And yeah, maybe had he continued to compete and figured things out, he would have done better, but maybe it was that it was just too stressful for him balancing work, balancing bodybuilding, dealing with these health issues. Maybe he never really was going to realize that full potential in bodybuilding, and he knows that, so he's taking this step back to retire and focus on his career because that's what's going to take care of his future. I mean, there's a lot of guys in bodybuilding that have insane physiques and never do fully realize their potential, and they spend, their entire 20s or 30s or however long pursuing bodybuilding, and it never works out to where they get to the top. And if he's talking about a career, I don't even know exactly what he does, but if he's talking about he already has his master's degree, he's thinking about pursuing a doctorate, you're probably talking about a lot more money than he would otherwise make in bodybuilding unless he were to become, a top 6 Olympian. I think really that's where the top tier money is. That's where the, hundreds of thousands of dollars is. But outside of that, there's not a whole lot of guys making hundreds of thousands of dollars like you would with a master's or a doctorate degree. Even if you've got some really good sponsorships, if you're outside of the top 10 at the Olympia or you've never made it to the Olympia, you're probably not making even $100,000 a year from sponsorships. And then let's say you win a pro show, and in Carlos's case, he hasn't won a pro show. Maybe you win a $15,000 pro show, make, let's say, $5,000 a month from that would be a really good bodybuilding sponsor, would be $5,000 a month, plus $15,000 in prize money. You're at like $75,000, and there's no guarantee that you're going to move up to, winning a $750,000 Arnold Classic, winning a $600,000 Olympia, getting a 6-figure or multiple 6-figure sponsorship contracts like the top guys do. So to be honest, I think if Carlos thinks and maybe even knows that he'll be better in his career than he would be in bodybuilding, I think that is the wise choice. And even on top of that, he preserves his health. And I say that because I was scrolling through some of the comments on some of the posts about Carlos retiring, and I noticed a lot of the comments were pretty negative towards Carlos in saying, he could have been great, he could have realized this, awesome potential that he had. And I think that's kind of a selfish perspective to have. Bodybuilding, without a doubt, is certainly not a viable career for everybody. And I wish Carlos the best in whatever his endeavors outside of bodybuilding are. And I hope that in whatever he does, he becomes 10 times better than he could have been in bodybuilding. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Now, next up in the news, Blessing Awodibu is back in the zeitgeist of bodybuilding conversation, posting some updates of him posing from the back with the hashtag at the very end of that post stating that he's 15 weeks out. That would put him in line to compete at the Arnold. Now, Blessing Awodibu, he's had kind of a rough couple of years in terms of his competitive placings. And, of course, from the back, Blessing is phenomenal from the back, especially his upper body. Blessing's back, the width, the density, back double, back lat spread, they're crazy shots for him. And, again, always been the thing with Blessing. The lower body doesn't quite match that. And the last time we saw him on stage was at the Legion show earlier this year. I believe it was back in May, where he was top 6, which was actually a pretty impressive placing considering how he looked. I felt like the midsection it had changed. It became a little bit distended. The condition wasn't quite where it needed to be. The lower body was improved a little bit, but it still wasn't where it needed to be. And then you go back to 2023. His best 2 placings in 23 were 5th and 4th at Chicago and then the Flex Pro Italy. So we haven't seen him win a show since 2022, which was the New York Pro and then the Indy Pro also that year. And it'll be interesting to see what Blessing is able to do at the Arnold. To be honest, my expectations for him really aren't super high. And it's kind of crazy to think about how I guess it would have been back in 2022, or maybe even, I guess it was about that long ago, maybe before then, when there was that rivalry between Blessing and Nick. I guess it would have been 2022, going into the Olympia that same year, where Blessing ended up in 16th place. It's kind of hard to believe we're going into 2026 already, and 2022 was 4 years ago. It's kind of crazy. So Blessing has kind of been off the radar for a while, and I think in a lineup where you've already got Martin Fitzwater and Andrew Jack, possibly Nick Walker, confirmed for the show. I don't think Blessing has a realistic shot at winning the show or maybe even being top 3. But honestly, I would like to see Blessing back in really good shape, have the midsection under control, have the condition dialed in. Because like that 2022 Indy Pro, for example, I think that was a really good look for him, and I'd like to see him get back to that because he is a very aesthetically pleasing bodybuilder, and he does bring something different to open bodybuilding. But I genuinely don't know if we're going to see Blessing back on top or back in the conversation as a top guy. I don't know. And even judging by these updates, looking at his legs from the back, I just really don't see they're still not matching the upper body. Now, next up in the news, we got a new physique update from Shaun Clarida, who's going to be competing in the Japan Pro this weekend, which I believe is actually Monday the 24th. So not technically this weekend based on the schedule. But Shaun Clarida, arguably, in my opinion, is one of the favorites to win this show. We last saw him compete at the Mexico Pro, where he was 3rd place. Honestly, not his best look. I think the Olympia was a much better look for him than the Mexico Pro. This look in this physique update that he posted looks to be on track to be better than what he brought at that Mexico show. I think he's probably without a doubt going to be in the top 3 at this Japan Pro. I still think, though, that Joan Pradells is probably the favorite to win this show. I think this is going to be the one where he finally solidifies his spot at the Olympia. But Shaun Clarida, make no mistake, in these updates, he's looking very dangerous. And he says that at 8 days out here in this update, he's 182.6 pounds. I think if he brings a look like he brought to the Olympia, to the 212 Olympia, he could win this show. But then Joan Pradells, in this update from Joan, I believe this is from Romania, so this isn't from his Japan Pro prep specifically. But there's been so much discussion about Joan lately. And everybody has been singing Joan's praises. They're all saying he's going to be a future Mr. Olympia champ. I saw a clip today where someone said they think he's going to be a 3-time Mr. Olympia champ. A lot of comparisons to Jay Cutler. I think he does have tremendous potential. I think we might be jumping the gun a bit on, future Mr. Olympia conversations. Even though I think maybe one day he could, but talking about multiple-time Mr. Olympia, let's wait till he gets to the Olympia first. And I think likely this Japan show could and maybe will be the show that gets Joan to his first Olympia, and then we can see how he does next to the best in the world, and then we can have that conversation. Even though at some of the shows that he's done, he's been next to the best in the world. Andrew Jack at the Romania show, for example. Michael Krizo at the British Grand Prix. Keon Pearson in Prague. Martin Fitz. So he has done shows. Keon, Sampson, Martin. He's been next to the best in the world. Granted, he hasn't beaten them yet. So it's not to say that this hype isn't justified, because early in Good Vito's career, before we saw him at the Olympia, we had never seen Good Vito stand next to any top Olympians at all. It's a little bit different with Joan because we've already seen him stand next to some of the best, and even though he hasn't beaten them, he looks like he belongs in call-outs with them. And that's what's so impressive about him, being a young guy that's never won a show or been to the Olympia. He's standing with multiple Mr. Olympia champs, with Keon, with Sampson, with Martin Fitzwater. He's standing with top 3 Olympians, Andrew Jack. He's standing with mass monsters like Krizo and Andrew Jack, and he doesn't look bad next to them. So he's my pick right now to win this Japan show. But another guy, Beef Stew. He's in Japan. This is the latest physique update from Stew. Stew definitely looking for some redemption here. I know that he was not happy with the look that he brought to both Texas and Tampa, and I know that he was not happy with those placings of 8th and 9th. Can he be in the mix here in Japan with guys like Shaun Clarida, with guys like Joan Pradells, James Hollingshead, Mark Hector, Jan Turk? This is going to be a nice show for Stu to potentially prove himself here. And Stu looks pretty big in these updates, which is why I wanted to show this one, is because a lot of the guys that we're talking about, even Mark Hector, but Mark Hector, Jan Turek, Shaun Clarida, this current version of James Hollingshead, we're not really talking about super mass monster guys, maybe aside from Joan being on the bigger end. Stu is a lot bigger than I feel like people give him credit for, and I feel like this could be a lineup where he can really show off that size. But right now, I'm thinking Shaun Clarida and Joan Pradells, top 2. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What are your predictions for the Japan Pro? Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon if you have not already. And as always, I love you guys, appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.